Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast presented by Gameday Tailgate Experience. My name is Joe Kuzma, and I am joined by my long lost co-host, normal co-host, I should say, or usual co-host, as I've been doing a lot with Trey Johnson. He's been doing a lot with the professor, so now we have come back together like a bunch of mini lion robots to create a great, giant, mega lion robot. That would be Voltron, right? Brian E. Roach, you're back. I missed you, buddy. Where you been?
I've been around. I missed you too, man. It's been a lovely. I don't even care. All I care about is today. I forget the past. Today, I want to talk about today.
Well, I was thinking about all the mini lion robots that come together and form Voltron, because you got me, we got Trey, we got Terry, you got the professor, you got all kind of things going on here at SCU. But the biggest thing that's going on is we are partying because the Baltimore Ravens fall at home. Ding dong. 4-5 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Final score 23-16. The Ravens have now lost. Let's count them up. Oh, going back to this one, that's 3 in a row. And 4 of their last 5, including 3 losses within the division. They've lost to everybody, including the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Browns. They're pretty much out of the AFC North race completely, totally. This puts the Steelers in a very good position, which they weren't at starting the season. We could stop panicking. There is a short week. We could also stop Wow, there's so many things we could panic. What do we want to complain about first? Do we want to just jump straight to the officiating? Because we got plenty of grown-ass man awards, but I have to talk about how do they even think an interception when a ball hits the ground, when a man's knee, a grown-ass man, by the way, or at least maybe not as much today, but a typical grown-ass man in Vance McDonald, his knee hits the turf or the Bermuda grass. They got the Bermuda grass in Baltimore, the fancy stuff, right?
Yeah.
And no whistle. It's like they just swallow their whistle. It's like they're just waiting for something to happen, except for holding. They don't see that, obviously. Egregious officiating. At least they didn't come to bite the Steelers in the behind, but a lot of people are going to say that I'm a homer. They're going to call you a homer too, Brian. So what? I'm being homerish. When Terrell Edmonds is in a perfect position and barely sneezes on a guy, and then you have the same thing happen to Antonio Brown in the back of the end zone, and you throw a flag for one and you don't throw a flag for the other, and poor Morgan Burnett, I mean, they're hand fighting and there's an obvious size difference, and it's like, let's throw another flag. But I think, you know what, I could let a couple of these go. We're used to, you saw me talking during the game. We're sending messages back and forth. I said there's going to be another jump ball, and lo and behold, it happened, and you saw Ben on the sideline going bonkers. I think the worst one, and the one that could have really made the outcome of this game different, was the hands to the face on Cam Hayward after he was pretty much, the guy tried to undress him on the line of scrimmage, and that ended up turning into points for the Ravens. Do you want to say anything about the officials, or are you going to have an epic rant like I just did?
Look, here's the thing, and this is true. I was actually trying to be good. I was trying not to get on the refs in this game. I was trying, and they were trying me. They were pushing me. It was like they missed the torment or something, because as the game progressed, the egregious nature of their nonsensical calls got worse and worse. Look, the refs stink. They stink. They stink to the point where they can't figure out what the time is supposed to be on the clock, to the point they don't understand the difference between a fumble and an interception, to the point where they call the game completely different on both sides of the ball. Holding only occurs on the Steelers' offensive line. Holding never occurs on the Baltimore offensive line. You've got to be kidding me.
You sound like George off of Seinfeld, and you're bringing in the poll a little early. I understand the Home Depot already has the Christmas decorations. He has already got the Festivus poll out. He is airing grievances.
It would definitely be time for the beatings to commence.
Let me tell you, man, what is worse than throwing a flag after was Flacco or Lamar Jackson or whatever? I'm trying to think exactly how the play went down, but it was already dead. It was basically a sack. And then all of a sudden the hanky came out for an offside on Bud Dupree. Like, when do you decide you're supposed to throw that early? And you know what else? It wasn't neutral zone infraction. This is offside. This is the one where we no longer let plays go, where Ben can throw a ball down the field to someone like, I think the most recent one in my memory is Sammy Coates a year or two ago against the Jets. There are certainly other examples like that. Landry Jones in the preseason to Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, it just kind of, I couldn't understand it whatsoever. And I'm not sure I want to harp on it much more because the outcome of the game was the Steelers' victory. If anyone who listened to the pregame with myself and Trey Johnson, who's one of the Steelers, just on injured reserve right now, Trey kind of hit the nail on the head here about just the secondary doing their job and keeping Flacco being quick with the release. That was my point. His point was they're still going to put some pressure on him because he's not going to be able to find anybody. I think I found it pretty interesting. I like to gloat when I get my predictions right. I like to completely ignore it when they're wrong. We don't talk about it when I'm wrong. I got a couple of these. I said that it was going to be tough to get the Flacco. There was only really two that occurred in the game. I had an over-under of 1 with Ben. I think Ben really did only have one that came down statistically. James Conner kept on rolling over 150 all-purpose yards in this game. I really hated the win-loss prediction, but I went with the under. It was 47.5. I thought the Steelers would get close to 30. If they could have got another field goal or some other points, potentially, but we saw a wacky Ben Roethlisberger punt that was not in the predictions. The Steelers did not turn the ball over. I think that was a very big one on my behalf. I didn't think that the Ravens had not been doing good in the plus-minus column. Oh, side note here. Ravens go into a bye week now. Do you know that they don't have an away game the whole month of November? They have 3 home games in November and a bye week now following this game before they face the Bengals. That's kind of cushy for them. Thanks a lot, Roger. While we're complaining at things. But just jumping around everywhere, I think my first grown-ass man, aside from the punt, I got to give one to Ben Roethlisberger for getting flattened, giving me the Aaron Rodgers scare of my life. And then let's give one to Josh Dobbs coming in cold off the bench. These all linked together. Coming in, hitting Juju for a first down with a laser beam, standing in his end zone practically. And then Ben comes right back in and gets Jesse James, hits him, I think for this was Tina Rivers who told me this just a few moments ago. I'm not sure if she got it from somewhere else or, Tina's bright. She could have come up with this herself. Yes, love you, Tina. Jesse James' longest career catch, I believe, and it was the longest play that passing play the Ravens had given up all year with a guy who looked like he just had his arm ripped, or arm become dislocated or separated or a broken collarbone. Crazy. Grown-ass man to Ben, a little bit of a grown-ass man award for Josh Dobbs, too, for just coming in there and standing in and just throwing a laser beam.
Oh, no, I'll definitely give it to Dobbs. Dobbs, I mean, that's a huge thing. Look, I'm gonna just say this, and you're gonna cry, so get your hanky out. You're gonna cry. That is not something that the GOAT of backups, Landry Jones, would have successfully done. It would have been a pick.
Hey, now I gotta hope he's no longer the GOAT, because if he ends up playing against, you know what? This is a good point. This is a great place to maybe mention our sponsor, Gameday Tailgate Experience here, because that's coming up. The Steelers play Thursday against Carolina, so there's not a weekend game. And the following weekend, Sunday Night Football, prime time, traveling to Jacksonville. If you are like I am, you can get get in on this tailgate action. This awesome tailgate action starts at 3:30, 5-hour pregame, unlimited food, 5-hour bar, family friendly. You got TVs, football coverage, live music and entertainment, DJ, the whole 9 yards, okay? We'll go the 10 yards too, because you can get a discount if you go to steelcityunderground.com, Jaguars tailgate, click on the link, go buy your ticket, use the promo code Steel City. You will get 30% off, and you get the party before the Jaguars game, which hopefully it's not Landry Jones. I could already see the Yenzers coming out if Landry Jones plays in that game and does well. Then if he doesn't, I'm gonna look like a fool. And just like when I miss predictions, I don't talk about it. So we won't be bringing that up. Hopefully he's not the GOAT, at least for one weekend. And I have a dilemma, Brian. Do I wear my Landry Jones jersey down there because he would be with the enemy now? But it's a road jersey, and it's Steelers. It's fashionable. It's it kind of fits. Some of you guys were needling me about that, but I digress.
I'm just gonna say this: if you have the cojones to wear that Landry Jones jersey to the tailgate, which will be jam packed with both fans, then I think you should. But no, you probably shouldn't.
Nah, I was going to go with the other GOAT, which is Antonio Brown. Although I do have a road jersey for another grown-ass man, James Conner, who once again, can I remind all the folks, there were some trolls. We get the trolls on YouTube too. I don't know, they must subscribe. Trolls, if you love it, subscribe. Go ahead. It just helps our numbers. But what was it? You gonna lose or something like that. I don't know. It was
you gonna lose.
It was something like that. And I was just like, okay, whatever. I get a chuckle. The Ravens now 4-5 on the season. This is going to cut into talking about the Steelers and their success in this game because they dominated. Do you think that the ownership, leadership, front office of the Baltimore Ravens, which is now changing because Ozzie Newsome's heading out the door. John Harbaugh, we mentioned this before. We were talking about this off the air before this game even kicked off. We saw the Browns just clean house after getting embarrassed by the Steelers just a week ago. Do you think they would make a move midseason? I don't think that they would, but I think this might be it. This may be the end of the road for Harbaugh and or Joe Flacco. This could be like a pairing at the end of this season, just like we saw with Hugh Jackson, who would have done everything differently now, of course, in his interviews, and Todd Haley, surprisingly too.
Well, hindsight's 20/20, right, Hugh?
Yeah.
But look, as you said, we put pretty much every coach in the AFC except maybe really Mike Tomlin as being on the hot seat. And how could you not, considering look, the Ravens are a franchise that is used to a certain level of success. They're kind of used to a Steelerish kind of level of success. They expect to be in the playoffs. They expect to be competitive, and they haven't been in the past couple seasons, and it sure don't look like they're headed for the playoffs this year. Not at this point. There's a lot, the guy who's the new GM, John Harbaugh, is not his hire. This isn't his guy. So, a lot of times when things change, man, things change. And Ozzie's not there to say John's my guy. And I don't know. I look, it's a bye week for them. They're going into a bye week. Will I be surprised if coming out of the bye week, Lamar Jackson is the starting quarterback? No, I won't be surprised. Will I be surprised if Joe Flacco if Harbaugh's gone? No, I won't be surprised. But I won't be surprised if nothing's changed either.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens, the last time they made the postseason, you're talking Steelerish, it was 2014. We remember how that season ended up 10-6. They went 5-11, 8-8, 9-7 last year. They are now 4-5. So if they're on the downside of 500 here with a lot of ground to make up. They need the Steelers and Bengals to both flop to help their season right now. And whether or not that happens is a whole other story. But I don't know. And then, of course, they missed the postseason the year before that in 2013 before, they had won the Super Bowl that prior year in 2012 after that was their fifth straight postseason appearance. And, they just haven't made, I think, the type of replacements. And now you're starting to hear the stuff on TV, which we talked about, that they're a very old team. They got some guys that are long in the tooth there. And remember, it was painful to hear some of that, but this is what's really painful if you're a Ravens fan. What looks a little more familiar here is seeing a 52-second possession and a 44-second total time elapsed off the scoreboard possession, both in this game, both by the Baltimore Ravens, both to end a quarter, be it the end of the first half or the end of the second half. This looked like what the Ravens were effectively able to do with the Steelers when they met in week 4. Steelers were executing this time. I think, man, I don't know where all the jump around. I thought the offense was pretty sharp for the most part overall. There was a miscue here or there, but they ate up a lot of clock. The time of possession, I'm looking for it here, Brian, 36-29 to 23-31. That's all they did was just, let's run plays, let's run plays, let's run plays, let's run plays. It didn't really show up huge on the scoreboard, but you had let me see here. That one that Dan Fouts was just, he couldn't sit still in his seat talking about to start the third quarter, 8 minutes and 14 seconds. But I mean, they had another one that was 5 minutes 46 seconds in the second quarter. They had 5:49 and 4:39 in the fourth quarter. They basically didn't let the Ravens have the ball almost the entire second half. And it sounds very familiar, but this is what helps the Steelers defense ultimately force something like a 3-and-out, which we got to finally see one of those occur in this game.
Yeah, look, both sides of the ball and played a reasonable game. Did they have some errors? Yes. The Steelers had a tough matchup in the secondary. I mean, the Ravens have 4 big tight ends that they use more like receivers than they use them like tight ends, and they use them all. I mean, I didn't hear Max Williams' names called, but Andrews got into the mix, and Hurst was into the mix, and those are tough matchups. It's part of why we got Morgan Burnett. And, unfortunately, Burnett got picked on a couple times and was, slightly out of position. He just couldn't get his head around to make those plays legitimate. And they're going to call that as a PI. The problem, of course, as we said earlier, they weren't doing it on both sides of the ball. But, I thought that for the most part, we didn't get a lot of sacks, and I kind of expected more out of the defense than we got, but they were consistently pressuring, and Flacco was just getting the ball out. They did have consistent pressure. Dupree got another holding call, the only one that was called against the Ravens all game, and it was only because it was so blatant.
Well, they called it 2, and there was probably 3. There was probably a third they missed with TJ Watt, too. It was it was Hayward and Dupree got the calls, and it was either Watt or Tuitt. That was the other guy that I thought was held as part of that, too. It was just like, everyone grab a jersey. They're going out of style.
Crazy. I thought that they provided consistent pressure against Flacco, much differently than they did in the first game. Where the first game, they couldn't get near him. And that was a big difference in this game. It was the offensive side of the ball. Look, Ben was making me a little nervous early on with some of the decisions. He got really lucky a couple times with passes that got deflected or that the linemen got their hands on, ended up falling to the ground and nothing got picked. I'm glad. I'm not going to complain. And he settled it down. We did talk about he's got to be a grown-ass man. We talked about Dobbs, and I'm going to flip to the defensive side and go, I'm giving one to Stephon Tuitt, without a doubt.
Yes.
Stephon Tuitt. Even the sack he got that he cost himself because he flinched. He blew up Joe Flacco on that play, and he made up for it by getting one later in the game. He definitely gets a grown-ass man award for his performance today. I'm not sure I've got another one I want to call out on the defensive side directly, even though I thought they all played really well. Okay.
I do. Mike Hilton.
Oh, I forgot him. I'm sorry, Mike Hilton. Yes.
Huge.
The tiniest grown. I thought Joe Hayden was going to be the tiniest grown-ass man. But no, he's not. Mike Hilton, I salute you.
Oh, man. Mike Hilton there was the play with Mark Andrews. There were several maybe shoestring tackles or tackles right at the line of scrimmage where he contained his guys. I believe there was another pass deflection that he had. Let's look at the stats, Can't wait to rewatch this just to see some of this. There were definitely some hits on the quarterback here, but just not in the way that you would think. Oh, no, he's not even on the stat. He's on the stat sheet for only the one, I guess. So I don't know. I hate Fouts for one reason, or essentially hate's a strong word. Let's go with dislike, Dan Fouts, because Hilton almost picked that ball off with Mark Andrews. And he's talking about how he swatted it away with his hand. It was more or less Andrews still fighting for the ball and it coming loose because Hilton's gloves were in there. He had no business getting anywhere near. He gives up like 6'7". Well, it's Andrews like 6'7", and Hilton's like 5'10", I think, if we're being generous. Maybe 5'11", generous. Yeah. He's a small guy, fast guy. He hits like a truck. Probably the closest thing I've seen to maybe like a Ryan Clark in a while, if that's fair to say.
A little bit, yeah.
But yeah, I had made mention of that, especially in the first half. He was all over the place. I felt he had a fantastic game. You know who had a quiet game, led the team in tackles, is Sean Davis. Now, I'm not going to quite say he was over the line, above the line for a grown-ass man, but it's been quiet in that backfield. Most of the big plays, not a whole lot given up from what you remember. It used to be just this glaring hole. The sieve was open. Everything was the floodgates were open on that secondary, and we're not seeing it as much. They tried to pick on Sensabaugh a couple times. The one ridiculous pass interference that I was already talking about with Ben going bonkers on the sideline there. I think Flacco misjudged one that he probably should have got scored on an out route in the end zone there. And it
we did. Absolutely.
Was Crabtree, I believe. So, not perfect, but not entirely noticeable by those guys. You're seeing some stuff over the middle. We're seeing a lot of LJ Fort still out there. Morgan Burnett, you already mentioned, got picked on some in this game. Joe Hayden, another quiet day going on his end. I mean, it's just you had Vince Williams get in there. Dupree, constant pressure as well, as they should with the guys that are these backup tackles, but we felt for the pregame that, it's the Ravens' forte. You already mentioned 4 tight ends. By the way, Max Williams didn't play. He was inactive.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Hayden Hurst was the one that only had the one catch, and we were making fun of that too because he was a first-round draft pick, and nada. So we were also talking about whether or not Lamar Jackson would be a threat, and he actually threw the ball for a change, which was kind of my point of playing against 10 guys instead of 11. You got to actually throw the ball, and Fouts kept saying it. And ding, ding, we finally agreed on something. So, but yeah, it was kind of just – it was one of those days where I'm watching the defense, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, this is looking – I'm liking the way it's looking. Tuitt has definitely come on. I think all the Dupree haters have to acknowledge that – he's getting some pressure too, even if he's facing some lesser competition. Who cares? That's what he's supposed to do. You don't want him playing down the competition. You want him to look like a star. And he's getting in there. He was getting wrapped around his waist. Cam Hayward doesn't show up on the stat line here either, but I don't know. I know he's got like those kind of shoulder pads where it looks like his sleeves are like rolling up into his armpits sometimes. But honest to God, it looked like part of that jersey may have been ripped or pulled over the pads. That's how many times that hands to the face is still so ridiculous that I have to keep bringing it up because he was just getting held in the front, held from behind, held every which way. Dupree was too, Watt was too, all of these guys to it, all of them. And there was like 1 or 2 flags in the entirety of the game. And I was just like, are you kidding me? I mean, you could tell there's a definite, what's Mike Tomlin like to say, JV team? That was what the Ravens offensive line looked like today. And they played like it, and they didn't get their hands caught in a cookie jar a few times. Oh, I know you've got something for this, the James Washington one where Jimmy Smith kind of grabbed him. And I understand what you're saying there. Brian's going to say it right here. Rookies don't get those calls, but still, man, ridiculous.
I agree with your premise. We were talking about it offline, and I agree with your premise. It's a call, and it was clearly a call that should have been made, even if it's just going to be defensive holding. You grab the guy's jersey, that's defensive holding, the call should be made. It's not going to get – Antonio Brown might get the call. James Washington is not going to get the call yet. Not when it's at that point. That doesn't make it right. It just makes it true. And we know these kinds of things. We know that a vet is going to get some stuff pulled on him over a rookie. I was less concerned with that one. I was glad to see James Washington in the game and make a couple catches. It still does appear to me like he's a work seriously in progress. I don't see him as advancing as quickly as Juju Smith-Schuster did. I also just want to mention that I think Eric Weddle's going to get a check or a bill, a fine from the league. That was, I don't know. Again, I don't understand if that hit is made the other direction. If it's a Steeler making that hit,
it's
Dan Fouts. Oh, it's not only is it an instant flag, but Dan Fouts would have gone on and on and on about it for 20 minutes. Because the other direction, it was like, yeah, okay, well, clearly hitting a defensive player, that's a flag. Oh, okay, let's not talk about it anymore.
Yeah, I'm going to jump back over to the offense because there's some things that need to be spoken about here. First of all, did you see Jalen Samuels in the game? Because if you blinked, you might have missed it. He got a carry. He was at the bottom of the screen. I really thought that may have been when Juju got hit. Actually, it was sometime in the second half, and I really thought Ben was going that direction, or it may have been a screen pass to Connor or something of that nature. But there's a couple things here. One was starting out with Ben's punt. Yeah. Everyone's ragging on the 9 yards there. Well, I'll tell you what happens if you bring Jordan Berry in. It's very difficult. Let's get the weak-legged Ben who might be able to pooch it and put it in a better position because Berry's probably going to kick it into the end zone. It's probably going to bounce in the end zone. You're just not going to have very much of a net positive there. Ball on the 20. Ball ends up on the 28 here. If you miss a field goal, now I'm trying to think, it was probably like 9-yard gain or something from where the line of scrimmage was. They were on the 30-something. I get that too. So if you attempt a very long field goal where, maybe last year Tomlin trots Boswell out there, I don't know. But as of late, I don't think you're going to do that and just put the Ravens, almost whereabouts the 40, we'll say. I'm not comfortable with that either. I don't know. It's 4th and 6. Do you try and run the ball with Connor and see if he can rip off another long run? Or do you try and throw the ball? I mean, I don't know what you do there necessarily. I don't think there is a right answer. And I wasn't up in arms over the Ben punt.
No, my take on this is I think Ben went out, saw what the defensive look was, and that if they'd gotten the right look, I think they'd have run a play. But I don't think they got the right look. So they had a backup plan, which is we're going to pooch it. They went for it on 4th down later in the game and picked it up. And I think that there was a good chance that they would have run a play with the right defensive look going. Like I said, I think he surveyed the field, said, nope, this ain't it. Kicked it. And I think it is the right thing to do in that instance. I don't mind the aggressiveness of pretending you're going to go for it or looking like you're going to go for it because I think it was more than that. But, at the same time, you're absolutely right. They're so close. It's a tough punt for Jordan Berry. Why would anybody complain about the difference from being on the 20 and the 29? Who cares? It's 9 yards. It was fine. It was fine. If they'd had done a slightly better job on coverage, he probably wouldn't have gotten it out that far.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that myself. There were a couple of plays there, and if you happen to catch any of the Carolina Panthers game, there was that has some cause for concern that special teams are going to need to tighten this up for the upcoming Thursday night game. Of our Ohio State guys, Curtis Samuel with a nice little touchdown run too in that game, by the way. But that was one of the things I just kind of like rolling my eyes. The one I didn't roll my eyes at was the play calling, including the Vance McDonald cluster. I don't swear on this show, so cluster fart, if you want to call it, with the officiating. But the play calling, like right after that, it was everybody was Butterfingers there. It was Butterfingers McDonald, Butterfingers Connor with the ball flipping up, and then it was just like, okay, come on, let's get away from this. Now, here's the other thing we didn't get to talk about, and this was the other way I have to agree with Fouts again. He said something I agreed with. I was trying to figure out why on earth, when the officials make the wrong call on the field, and it's not a penalty against the Steelers, why there would be a 10-second runoff. Now, I understand they called it an interception. So it wasn't even if they call it an interception. Now, if you call it a catch and a fumble and the guy's down in the middle of the field and the clock should have run and you caught them a break by stopping the clock and essentially gave them a timeout, that's an advantage for the offense. That is not what occurred there. The officials called it an interception, which means that it never went to the other team. And that means, what's the opposite of an interception or a completion? An incompletion. It means the clock stops. And they're running 10 seconds off here. And I'm like, you're the guys who screwed this up. If it wasn't a completed pass, then the clock is dead, and there's no reason to be running 10 seconds off the clock. I have a feeling Al Riveron will either address this in his weekly officiating video, or he'll completely ignore it. He'll pull the route like me. When you're wrong, just completely ignore it. I don't actually do that, by the way. I'm joking. Yeah. I don't mind when people say I'm wrong sometimes, or when people say Terry's wrong on her show every now and then. So,
that's not right.
She apologized. She
should not be laughing at Terry's misfortune.
She would be laughing with us, so it happens. I kept calling Matthew Thomas Michael Thomas for how many weeks, so it happens. I think she called Stephen Ridley Calvin Ridley or something like that, so I think that was the one, and she flubbed on something else. And we have our stats people that are sitting there with their pencils and their box scores and their notepads at home during the game doing this. Well, they say at home, like they say in baseball, the people, they still give those out at ball games. I'm like, I don't really see a whole lot of people keep their own stats. I think since smartphones have become a thing, but Terry, I don't think Terry was deep within her notes. Sometimes when you go off memory, you tend to screw things up, just like me, like you, just like everyone else. So I thought it was kind of funny though. Dan Fouts kept saying that's the play that Ben's looking for against this Steelers defense. Did you hear that in the second quarter too? And I'm like, Ben doesn't play for the Ravens.
Yeah, that's not really the way. And every play at some point in time was the most important play of the game for the Ravens. I got so tired of hearing Dan Fouts say, this is the most important third down. This is the most important series. This is critical. Shut up.
It's their second possession, Dan. It's their second possession. It's 0-0. Please calm down. Sit down, please. I know it's, something's hurting in his butt and he just couldn't sit down. He had to get it all out. But that play calling before the end of the half was kind of miserable. I may have a silent grown-ass man here because for 2 weeks now, I think he's due some credit. I mean, the Steelers, you're always worried about, like, the future of the team. And some of these young guys that come in, then you're always like, well, if these guys have to come in, then the standard is the standard, which isn't always the case either. But Matt Filer, locking down the right tackle position, one heck of a job once again. I got to give kudos to him. I guess we don't give enough props to the offensive line. It's not that we take them for granted, but it's almost like when Antonio Brown has a huge game or now when Connor's having a huge game, you get almost so used to it and so complacent that you don't always, give that tip of the cap.
You speak for yourself, young man. The professor and I give many, many props to the offensive line. And consistently. And you're right, but you're right in this case. Matt Filer has done twice now a really above-the-line job in locking down that right tackle position, making sure that, he's doing a solid job on run blocking. He's doing a solid job in pass protection. And while we got a ridiculous number of holding calls, I don't think he had one. That's good. I mean, I can live with that, because quite frankly, all offensive linemen are grown-ass men.
With the Steelers, they are apparently. It's like they were the wide receiver factory. Now they're the offensive lineman factory. It appears. So it's just anybody they plug and play in there. Whether they pull B.J. Finney or Matt Filer off the bench. Chuck Okorafor did not play in this game. He was one of two guys who didn't get in. Stephen Ridley being the other of the active members. So I don't know, man. I was pretty impressed with this. Outside of the pass interference calls, it looked like the Steelers D had locked down and put the clamps on the Ravens pretty well. They're going to have a challenge coming up this week against a Panthers team that almost coughed it up too against Fitzmagic. They were out to coasting 35 to something, and it ended up being, I think, 35-28 final score of that one. That's who's going to be coming into town. Oh, I'm sorry, 42-28. Carolina did end up scoring again. So we'll be talking about that. Hopefully Trey's Corner I forgot where Trey was coming and flying in and out of and blah, blah, blah. He's a busy guy himself. So we're going to try and catch that show a little bit early. Don't forget about the whole tailgate deal that's going on with Gameday Tailgate Experience. And before everyone's just like, well, the show's almost over, we're going to shut this off. No, you wait. There's contests going on at steelcityunderground.com. Well, actually, it's over on our Twitter. And if you look at the pinned tweet, there's NFL Gameday Morning special edition commemorative box of coffee. There's 5 different kinds of coffee. 4 of them are named after what was it? It was Rich Eisen is like the Eisenshine, and then there's Kurt's Cafe, I think, or Coach's Cafe. I can't remember which one it was because it's like Steve Mariucci, Kurt Warner, and then Michael Irvin, and then they just have like a generic one for the show. I think that has like a logo, but full coffee beans for the people who like the coffee. Brian, tell me you're a coffee guy.
I don't do hot beverages.
Oh, my goodness. Well, how are you supposed to enjoy your toast?
I don't have toast. I'm the host who does not like coffee and who does not like toast.
Oh, that's
coffee,
too bad.
Look, here's my thing. Coffee is mud. It smells fantastic. I agree with that. I think coffee is one of the greatest smells in the world. The taste? No.
It's an acquired taste, my friend. I got
to tell you something. About what you just said. Acquired tastes. Acquired tastes are your body, your taste buds, your mouth, your senses saying, don't do this anymore the first time you do it. And yet you continue to do it in order to convince your body that it's okay. And eventually your body gives up and goes, fine, do whatever the heck you want.
No, that's not true, because like some things that just go together magically the first time, it's like, I want more, like pineapple on pizza.
Wrong. Once again, a wrong statement. Pineapple belongs. I got to tell you this now. My daughter, we had, because sometimes I'm a lazy parent and I admit it freely. We ordered pasta from Domino's last night for dinner, and she was going through the ingredients on what was going to be her pepperoni Alfredo pasta, and she goes, ooh, pineapple, and I just went, no, you will not.
No, it does not belong on pasta, only on pizza. I could handle that. There was like a pineapple blizzard from Dairy Queen at one point too, and I'm just
that's okay.
Nah, that's weird. Like, that's just you're combining fruit sugar with like dairy sugars, and it's an overload. It just makes you bounce around. But my morning started with toast and coffee. That's how I get prepared. I have a Steelers mug. I was ready to attack the day, and I'm happy. 23-16. I cannot complain. First place, still rolling. The Carolina game, that's going to be interesting. Almost always favors the home team over the road team, as long as Ben is healthy and, truly only the wind was knocked out of him. He's crazy, and they mentioned that. I was worried he wasn't going to come in, man. He was just laying there, and I'm just like, geez. Big man needed a minute. So any parting thoughts right now, Brian? Because you know what? I might not get to catch you before the Panthers game, but I'm going to definitely – well, I may not catch you after either, because it's going to be a late night. No, we'll get together. I think we're still going to get together. That's going to be a late night. You're going to have to wait until Friday morning for that one, folks.
Yeah, that is going to be a late night. Look, it's a short week. It'll be – hopefully it will the ride continues, because this team looks – like they're getting themselves on a roll. And let's just keep it rolling. The Panthers are going to be tough. It's going to be a tough game. They've been handling business, but they can do it.
I'm firm in my beliefs, confident in my thoughts, that the only team that can beat the Steelers right now is themselves.
The Steelers, yep.
And I'm telling you, that even goes with the Kansas City Chiefs. As I watched the Cleveland Browns, even their offense – they didn't even have an offensive coordinator and a head coach for half of the week, put up 21 points on the Chiefs. The only thing is slowing that team down, because they're monsters. And yes, I look even at the LA Rams as being susceptible. Oh my God, you are such a homer. I don't even mention the Patriots in that same breath. Let me tell you, I'm starting to feel it, buddy. I'm really starting to feel it. I think we're going to have a full picture of this as November continues to roll on. Steelers and Panthers this Thursday. Look for the pregame show probably on Wednesday, I'm thinking, just to give some show notes, because we're going to have a bottleneck and a log jam with the short week, just like the players will. Brian, thanks once again for joining me.
Absolutely, always a pleasure, and it's a doubly nice pleasure when it's after a Ravens win or the Ravens loss or Steelers beating the Ravens.
This is why you need coffee, my friend, so you could stay awake and get these things done coherently here.
Coffee is bad. Coffee is evil.
That's just rotten. But you know what? I'm loving this. I'm loving what's going on here. Looking good. We'll talk more later. Until next time, folks. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. Be safe. Be good. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.